So, my next guest, let me tell you a story I tell, and I wrote in a book one time. You know, in Mark chapter 5, there's that scene where the demon-possessed men, they approach Jesus, and they say, "Son of man, don't destroy us." And they're like, "Well, what does he want?" And it's like, "Well, there's a herd of pigs. Cast us in the herd of pigs." So he throws the demon, who are legion, for there are many, into the herd of pigs, and they run down the hill and they drown in the water. Well, demons are eternal, so they had to do something after the pigs died, so they invented this thing called Twitter. And that explains social media. It is a cesspool. It's a terrible, terrible place. But occasionally, you find real gems on social media. And my next guest, I actually started following him on Twitter, and he's actually fantastic on Twitter. But even more than that, he happens to have gotten elected as the state school superintendent for the state of Oklahoma. And it is actually my pleasure to bring on stage someone who gets more hate than I do on social media, and also does a great job advancing the future minds in this country. Ryan Walters, state school superintendent of Oklahoma.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
All right, so first, you're overly polite. You gotta stop saying, "Sir, my dad is over here." So he's the Mr. Erickson. I'm just Erick. Thank you honestly, thank you for coming from Oklahoma. And I wanna begin with you in the same way I did with the governor yesterday. You all have this wild situation now in your state between who are Native Americans, who are American citizens, and taxes. How does that play out in dealing with the state school system?
Yeah, one of the things here in Oklahoma, we've been very excited to lead the country in education reform. We understand that parents know best for kids. We understand that education needs to be more about ensuring that kids love this country, understand the history of this country, and then go on to lead successful lives. And so, when we work with the tribes. It's one of those situations where we continue to navigate Supreme Court rulings that come in and upend the state. So it's something that we continue to work with the tribes to try to make sure that every kid's got a great education.
Now, I gotta dive into the hate that you get on social media from teachers' unions. I mean, good Lord. You and Corey DeAngelis in the school choice movement, you have been a major advocate for kids in your state, and against just, and I don't, like in Georgia, we don't actually have the big teachers unions because we're right to work state. What is it like, though, working with these teacher groups in a state that are just upset that you're holding them accountable for failure to teach?
It's pretty remarkable. One of the things I would like the audience to make sure that you hear from me is, even in red states, your teachers' unions, your left-wing activists control so much of your education system. And I want to give you an example of that. So when I win this election, I come and take office, I come in the State Department of Education, and along all the walls are the portraits of the former heads of the teachers' unions. So when you come into work every day, it's like, this is who you work for. You work for all the teachers' union folks. So I came in first day, sat my senior staff down, and I said, "Folks, I want you to notice what was on the walls, all these pictures of the heads of the teachers' unions. We're taking them all down, okay? We're gonna put up pictures of kids, parents, because that's who we work for, right? We don't work for the teachers' union, we work for parents and kids. Folks, you would think I went into a back alley and killed a bunch of cats or something, because the media, and guys, I kid you, that was 2 years ago. There's not 3 months that don't go by that the media doesn't run a story about, when are you going to put them back up? Why did you take their portraits down? Literally, I had even some Republican lawmakers try to pass a bill requiring me to put them back on the wall. But it just shows you how the left, I will give them credit. They've done an incredible job of capturing education. They understand that if we control the schools, we can put every kid on a pathway to a pride parade. We can put every kid into this transgender ideology, this woke mentality on everything. And if we control the school system, hey, we can lose other sectors of society, but that's one of the most influential areas. And so they fight like crazy. Every reform we do, they pass out pamphlets. Here's how you stop whatever the State Department's trying to do. So we tell them you can't teach critical race theory. They try to find ways around that. We tell them they can't push transgenderism on kids. They come to teachers' defenses who still do it. But we've been very clear. If you're going to come into our state and you're going to push left-wing indoctrination on kids, you're not going to teach any longer. You're not going to teach in the state of Oklahoma. We want teachers that are there to empower kids through an education, not turn them into social justice warriors, and we're going to continue to hold the line on that.
So I got to ask a background question. When a lot of people get into politics, they don't want to run for state school superintendent. Why state school superintendent?
You know, my background was as a public school teacher. I've got 4 little kids at home. And you start looking at the future of the country. You start looking at the direction we're in. You know, President Trump talks about making America great again. We're living in a society where I don't know how many folks we still have that understand what made America great in the first place. And if you don't have that central understanding of our history as a country, we're not going to make it. I mean, history, again, I'm a history teacher. History's lessons are very clear on this, right? When a civilization, when a group of people forget who they are, when they reject their history, when they reject values, when they reject principles, they fall. And what we've seen here in America is our kids have been lied to. Our kids have been lied to since they were 3 and 4 years old in school. They have been told to hate their country. They have been told that religion did not play a role in the history of this country. Folks, that's a lie. That is a lie. You can... we made an announcement a few weeks ago, made a lot of leftists pretty upset.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about this one.
We put the Bible back in every classroom. Folks, it is irrefutable that the Bible played an incredible role in this nation's history. You can go back to the Pilgrims, you can go to the Puritans, you can go to George Washington, John Adams, you can go to Abraham Lincoln, you can go up to Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from a Birmingham jail. These individuals cited the Bible as inspiration for what they were doing. And the fact that we've allowed schools to say, no, you can't have a mention of the Bible, you can't have a physical Bible in a school, they have completely turned schools into state-sponsored atheist centers, where, hey, you can only talk about our history in a secular manner. Well, that is not true. That is lying to kids, and it does not give kids an accurate picture of where this country came from, what our founders believed, what our rights come from God. Well, how do you explain that to kids if you don't explain anything about God or about what the context was of Thomas Jefferson's words? It's so important that our kids get that true understanding of American history, that they're able to have that love for our country and understand the core principles we were built upon so that we can have a path forward to be a successful country.
Okay, now we have to go off on a tangent here. History teacher, what's your favorite area of history?
The founding era. I mean, hey, I can sit there, my kids in class, you got me on a tangent here, right? But we loved, I would read every Federalist paper with the kids, every anti-Federalist paper, and we would do this deep dive. And again, you asked the question, so,
we're going to stay here for a minute.
One of my biggest frustrations is when you look at how the left has been able to do what they do, how they've been able to indoctrinate kids, they're not even letting kids read the Constitution. They're not letting them read. They have to read what some professor said about the Constitution. Okay, that's absurd on 2 levels, folks. Number one, your kids are smart enough to read and understand the Constitution. That's part of the beauty of what the founders did. Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence wrote this unbelievable document that you can read and understand. You can. And so it's an insult to the intelligence of our young people to act like they can't understand it and study it. Number one. Number two, but it's intentional, folks. It is done so they can lie about the founding. It is done so that they can lie to your kids about this country because they want your kids to hate this country. If you have no understanding of it and you only understand it through the prism of what leftists say about it, you can completely indoctrinate our young people.
So it's funny you say this because my 10th grade history teacher was a lady named Kathy Welch who the day after Clinton beat Bush came into class and put on To Kill a Mockingbird and said, I can't teach today. She was that upset. She's super Republican. Something about history teachers, I guess. She made a point one time in class in 10th grade. I'm in a 10th grade class in public school in Louisiana, and she brings up abortion, and we've read the Constitution. She says, now find abortion in the Constitution. And she gives this lecture. She says, the problem with whether you believe this or not is that if we can have judges say this, we can't read our founding documents and govern ourselves. We have to rely on these black-robed people to do it. So I'm glad you said that. And the founding, ancient history and the founding era are my 2 favorite areas of history. And when I was in college, I had a great history professor. His father was a major theologian in the Presbyterian Church in America, where I am. He's a good conservative guy. And he made me read The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution from Bernard Bailyn. Great book. And when the 1619 Project came out, And what's her name is out there saying that this country was founded on this. Like, wait a second, I recall this book I read, and if y'all don't understand this book, so The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution, this historian Bernard Balin, instead of reading the papers of John Adams and George Washington, he read the papers and the diaries of the local butcher in Philadelphia and the silversmith in Boston. And turns out all of these middle class and lower income people were well educated and really believed that we got to fight the British for our liberties. And by the way, they really hated slavery, which was reading this book. It's just like, man, they really are lying about American history and trying to get into the classroom.
And you know, we've gone to a place, and you have seen it, the left has controlled education for decades. But what you've seen now, especially with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the teachers union partnering with the Department of Education to attack parents, to attack families, it's at a whole new level. So just to show you, just to give you some clarity here on the fight in Oklahoma, I am literally being sued in the Oklahoma State Supreme Court by school districts that want to bring genderqueer and flamer back to their schools because I threw out all that pornography the leftists were pushing. They are suing me in the state Supreme Court to bring that back, while at the same time saying they're going to refuse to allow the Bible, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence into every classroom. That's the fight we're having, folks. They are clearly trying to indoctrinate your kids with the most radical ideology this country's ever seen, while at the same time not wanting kids to, first of all, I'm going to tell you, not only will kids understand American history when they read what the founder said, I'm going to tell you, they're going to love this country. One of the other favorite things I love to do with kids in my class was I'd have them read the letters from the soldiers in World War II, what they wrote back home. Well, let me tell you, they knew what they were risking their lives for. They knew that as much as they loved their family back home, America was worth fighting for. America was worth dying for. We've gone from a country that taught our young people who went to war that loved their country that much to a country that has developed a hatred of our country and our history from our young people because we've allowed our schools to lie to our kids.
So I have a side question we can get into later, your name being Ryan. When I had Kevin Stitt and Kevin Hearn here yesterday, I thought you had to be a Kevin to get elected in Oklahoma. But Kevin Hearn pointed out that you can't find a Democrat in Oklahoma. And yet this is happening in Oklahoma, a conservative state. That kind of, I think, is something you should put the spotlight on and blow people's minds that you got all these people with R's next to their names who may or may not be elected, but aren't necessarily down with a conservative agenda.
And folks, and it's time for, we've got to play offense. I'm a firm believer. Republicans, we've got to play offense. We have the core principles. We have the policy agenda that works. Erick, I'm telling you, we go in, and here's a shocker. We have full school choice in Oklahoma. You, the parent, can send your kid to a private school, Christian school, charter school, homeschool. We want you to make that decision, right? We do merit pay for teachers. Crazy concept. You do a great job, we want to pay you more, right? We introduced signing bonuses and pay for performance for tutoring. Hey, we want kids to get caught back up quickly. We want to see this performance. We bring accountability to districts. You're not going to stay in the bottom 5% in our state. We got over 100 schools out of the bottom 5%. Never been done before in the state of Oklahoma. Never had more than 40 jump off of our F list. We had over 100 last year because we came in, we brought accountability, we brought transparency. It can work. But as Republicans, you can't look at institutions like education that have been controlled by leftists for decades and do policy initiatives that just move the needle that much. We have to go play offense and drastically change the direction of our education system to put the country back on the right track. And I'll just be clear, we've so often looked at education as a little silo, don't we? It's like, well, the schools are over there and everything else in America or culture or society is outside of that. That's not the way to look at education. The reality is education touches everything. So when we allowed the left to control our schools, guess what? They lied to our kids about our country. They turned our kids into social justice warriors. They created a victim mentality in our kids. They told our kids from when they were this tall that you're not responsible for your own actions, you're a victim. And then we wonder why kids grow up and burn down cities. We have literally allowed the left to control the trajectory of this country, every aspect of it, through our education system. Folks, we're laying out a blueprint in Oklahoma. We have to play offense. Our principles work. Our values will show themselves to be true, but we've got to go and move the needle and fight back against this radical agenda.
So I want to hone in on a different angle with schools. So my wife's sisters are both teachers, and the oldest retired. She had been a first grade teacher for a long time, and in a public school. And she said she kind of just got frustrated because she wasn't teaching anymore. She was a paper pusher. The administrative bureaucracy that the public school systems, and not just because of state regulation, but because of federal regulation, is just overwhelming teachers who want to teach and they can't. They become bureaucrats. So how do you fight that?
Well, number one, you should abolish the Federal Department of Education, period.
Amen.
That should be gone. Hey,
Easy applause line for this crowd, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about history. Can you imagine George Washington and John Adams if you told them, you guys know, it's going to take a couple of centuries, but there's going to be a Federal Department of Education that dictates to schools like Joe Biden did a few months ago. Do you remember this? He woke up one morning and decided, now I think boys can be girls, so I'm going to try to dictate to every state. They have to allow boys in the girls' bathroom. They have to allow boys in girls' sports. We were the first state. I stood up and said, we will never comply with that, ever, number one, and we're going to sue you over it. You can't just wake up one morning and decide that you're going to force this issue on the states. The reality is there should never be a Federal Department of Education. They push all these ideologies I discussed earlier, but they also are this massive bureaucracy that tries to dictate to states what education should look like. We should abolish that department. All power for education should return to the states, and the states should do what we do in Oklahoma, return all that power back to families. Here's the reality. The breakdown of the family unit is one of the most destructive forces in America today, if not the most destructive. Everything that a state does, especially in education, should be done in order to strengthen the family. I talk to my staff about that every day. How does this strengthen the family? How does this make families more involved in their kids' lives? How does this let them know more about the options that are available to them? How does this encourage? Look, there are some families where we want to encourage them to be even more involved. Hey, we want you to come in. With our tutoring programs, we have the parents come in for them. Hey, we want you to see everything we're talking to your kids about. We want you to see the curriculum. So it's so important that in everything that you do, you are strengthening the family. And folks, I get asked the question a lot about, Democrats' policies that are destructive of the family unit. Folks, I believe it's intentional. I'm sorry. I just cannot believe that the Democrats, it just so happens that every policy agenda item they've pushed for the last few decades just happens to destroy the family. Folks, I believe that they want to destroy the family unit. I believe that they want to destroy our faith. I believe that they want to destroy the fabric that holds this country together because they want to reshape it, don't they? They have a Marxist worldview. And hey, the Marxists have been clear. We control populations through education centers. We control them through destroying faith by attacking the family unit. And our Democrats today are no different. That is their goal, is to undermine those things. So Republicans, we have to be the party that strengthens the family unit, that strengthens religious liberty, and make sure that our kids understand that.
So in other words, what you're saying is a couple of years ago at one of the Democratic conventions when they said the government's the only thing we all belong to, we should believe them. Yeah.
They say it. I mean, that's the thing. When you look at this Harris and Waltz ticket, they are saying it. They're not even hiding it. If elected, this would be the most anti-Christian administration this country has ever seen. Look at what's going on our college campuses. Look at the attack on Jewish students. Did you ever think, hey, look, we knew that the college campuses were left-wing indoctrination centers. We knew that, right? Did you ever think that Jewish families would have to fear for the safety of their kids if they sent them to some certain colleges and universities? That's how far we've come as a country by letting the left, again, they're saying it. Like you said, Eric, you got to believe them when they say it. They're telling you what they're about.
So this is outside your wheelhouse, State School Superintendent, so I apologize in advance, but it's still on this topic. On a panel discussion earlier, we were talking about the rise of the Confucius Institutes that the Chinese have done, but they're also trying to seed you should learn Mandarin curriculums for elementary and secondary schools in the country. How has Oklahoma pushed back on this sort of stuff?
Folks, this blew my mind when it was first brought to my attention. We had our largest school district that partnered with the Chinese Communist Party to teach curriculum to kids about Chinese history and American history. Took money from the Chinese Communist government. Well, when I found out, not only did we kill that contract, we said no school, we passed a rule, no school in the state of Oklahoma will ever take money from an adversarial foreign government. Then, folks, I got a call from Congress. I went and testified at Congress because guess what we found out? This wasn't just happening at a random school in Oklahoma. Governor DeSantis down in Florida found over a dozen in Florida that were doing the same thing. It was going on all across the country. So I went and testified before Congress. We should pass national legislation. This is a national security issue, folks. I just told you about left-wing teachers union teachers trying to indoctrinate our kids to hate this country. We have literally allowed the Chinese Communist Party to come into our country to convince kids to hate our country and believe they're the good guys. It's such an absurd level of malpractice on our education institutions, but it just shows you the hatred for the country by so many folks inside the teachers unions. We have to make sure that we protect our kids. And I'm gonna tell you the other thing they do with this, Eric. They want your kids' data. They want the information on your kids. So they want to indoctrinate them, but they also, that's where they keep doing these data hits. That's one of the things we were talking to the feds about as well, that, you know, some of those intelligence agencies. The Chinese Communist Party is trying to get a hold of data from our school systems. They're trying to get a hold of information. So again, they want to indoctrinate your kids, but they also want that data. They want that intel.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked you the question because I assumed it was more of a meta issue for Oklahoma. That's actually kind of wild that school systems were willing to take the money. So did they know where the money was coming from?
Now, that's a good question. What the Chinese Communist Party did is they funneled it through a nonprofit. So that's where we had to take certain steps to get to it. But the nonprofit was associated with the communists. So guys, y'all are trying to make these excuses, but that's how they were getting around our you know. Why did they do that? Let me take a step back. Why did they funnel it through a nonprofit? So we couldn't tell that the money was coming directly from the Chinese Communist Party. Because again, we'd already passed rules and laws that said, listen, we need to see all the money coming into a school, except for the union fought for a little loophole. The loophole was unless it comes through a nonprofit. So it's unbelievable, the efforts they will go to hide information from families, to hide information from the public. And so that's where now we say, look, it doesn't matter where you get the money from. You're going to have to disclose that because we can never allow a situation like that to happen again.
Last couple of minutes we've got, let me talk to you about the setup for school choice in Oklahoma. You mentioned like private schools, homeschools, charter schools. Just how expansive are the options for families? If not that I want anyone to move to Oklahoma unless you're contributing to the traffic here in Atlanta, but then yeah, please move to Oklahoma City. What are the options available for a family moves to Oklahoma? What does it look like for school choice?
Yeah, so here's the way it works. Is you get a refundable tax credit, so on the front end, to go to a private school or a homeschool. So you can go to any private school in the state. You can go to a homeschool situation as well and be able to use that money to buy those own funds. Because again, if you want to homeschool your kids, spend more time with your kids, and you're able to do that, we want you to be able to do that. So our tax credit also applies for homeschooling. And Eric?
Are there really people who want to do that, spend more time with their kids? Just trying to get mine out of the house. She's sitting over there.
I will tell you this, though. This is the national model. We should absolutely have federal school choice through a tax credit program like Oklahoma's to say, any state, no matter where you live in the country, you want to put your kids in hey, your public school is gone woke on you. They're telling your kids to hate this country. They're dangerous. We see that all the time as well. Get them in a private school. Get them in a charter school. Homeschool them if you can. This is how we should do this nationally. So I told you earlier, we should abolish the Federal Department of Education. We should have national school choice tax credit so then families can mobilize, move their kids where they need to. But yeah, hey, look, move to Oklahoma. We have a tax credit there available for you now. The country should follow when President Trump gets elected. That'll happen, but until then, move to Oklahoma. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. Hey, we give teachers $50,000 signing bonuses if you're in the top 10% of the country and you're effective. So hey, we're on this. And guys, you know what they told me from the beginning? You going against the teachers union, you're going to run off all of these teachers. And well, you know what? If you're a social justice warrior, yes. But guess what? We've been able to recruit teachers from all over the country because we've said, hey, if you do a great job, we'll pay you more. We're going to bring discipline back to the classroom. We want our kids to love this country. We've had teachers from all over the country moving to Oklahoma teachers. So we want parents to move in. We have been very clear with an education vision that is working. And again, I think it's just, we've got to play offense. This is a great example of that. The policies work. The conservative ideas are based in truth. They're based in history. These policies, once implemented, show success. And by the way, that's why they're so mad. That's why Randy Weingarten, she put me on the screen and put a target over us. You know, there were 6 or 7 of us, but I was on her screen there at her national convention a few weeks ago. Why? Because not only are we saying it, we're doing it. And the results are coming in. and it's effective. And that's what scares them the most.
So I got to ask you on a side political tangent here, because you are targeted by the teachers unions. Got a lot of people in the room. There's some here from Oklahoma, and a lot of people who aren't. If they want to help you fight back with the teacher unions, what should they be doing to help you in your fight?
Well, I appreciate that. As Erick pointed out earlier, follow me on Twitter. We have some pretty interesting back and forths on Twitter, so we have some fun on that. Also, there's a website, RyanWaltersForOklahoma.com, where you can follow the work we're doing. But folks, let me tell you, in every state, we should be getting good folks on every single school board. Every single school board. We should be getting parents involved and engaged. There's a reason why the Biden administration and Kamala Harris partnered with the teachers union to weaponize our federal government against parents that show up at school board meetings. Y'all remember that? Remember that when they started investigating those parents? Because that's an incredible accountability tool. I always tell parents, if you can't get the answer privately, if they won't tell you something, make it public. Let the whole city, let the county see what the school is keeping from you as a parent, because God gave you your kids, okay? You were the person that was entrusted with your child. Don't ever let some bureaucrat tell you otherwise. And so that's why they fought against that so much. So folks, absolutely have to get good folks on school boards. Have to continue to fight back against that woke indoctrination by getting parents involved. Folks, we've got to get President Trump elected. We absolutely have to. We've got to get the ability to abolish the Department of Education, get national school choice done, get our schools back to a place where, again, we want you to know American history, but look, I'm unapologetic. I want you to love this country. I want you to love this country. I want you to understand those core principles we were built on. G.K. Chesterton said we're the only country. It was founded on a creed. Okay? What was that creed? What are our founding principles? Why did John Adams say that this Constitution was made for a moral people? Our kids need to know that. Your kids understand that. Your kids love this country. Your kids have their whole life in front of them to be very successful, have a great high quality of life, but also to continue making this the best country in the history of the world.
Ryan, listen, it's a long flight out from Oklahoma to get here to hang out with us, and I sure am glad you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erick. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
So I'm going to get out and do an event in Oklahoma, and I'll let you know.
I would love to. I would love to do that. Yes,
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Erick. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Yes.